from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, the economic drivers seem stuck in neutral for rural America. Drought expands in the high plains. In agribusiness, the business of wheat.
The issue really is what's happening to the north. Your spring wheat, your Minneapolis contract, 53% of that is planted in North Dakota and South Dakota, right in the face of this blast furnace.
Missy Bauer talks tall beans and managing growth, and researchers in Louisiana say this weevil may be the key to fighting invasive water weeds.
Ag Day, brought to you by the dependable, longest-lasting Chevy Silverado.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Bankers throughout the Midwest and Great Plains say don't look for farmland values to improve over the next year. That as the latest Rural Main Street Index shows the rural economy stuck in neutral. The June survey of agricultural conditions from Creighton University shows the index dropping slightly to 50, indicating growth neutral. Bankers from the 10 states project farmland prices will go down another 3% over the next 12 months. Now, as far as farm income, almost 1/4 of bankers report rejecting a higher percentage of farmer loan applications, and about 60% report boosting collateral requirements on farm loans.
The president understands that the prosperity and recovery has not been uniform, and he understands that many people, and I gave you some statistics about rural poverty and 1 in 4 children, and we look at the employment numbers, they've not come up to pre-2008 in rural areas.
Secretary Perdue made his comments following the inaugural meeting of the Interagency Task Force on Agriculture and Rural Prosperity. Now, the meeting included several cabinet secretaries who are charged as a group with improving the quality of life for people in rural areas. Many in the ag lobby say expanding trade with Cuba could bolster U.S. farmer income, so they'll be watching closely today as President Trump announces his new policy toward the communist nation. The Obama administration eased some restrictions on tourism and trade, which much of the farm lobby favored. Now, according to the American Farm Bureau, there's no indication that President Trump will clamp down on agricultural sales, which are allowed on a cash-only basis. A group of senators representing farm states sent a letter to Secretary of State Rex Tillerson this week, encouraging the State Department to maintain economic and political engagement with Cuba. Last month, a bipartisan group of senators introduced legislation to lift the Cuba trade embargo, which has been in existence for 50 years. Called the Freedom to Export to Cuba Act, it would, among other things, boost American ag exports into Cuba. Back here in the heartland, drought intensifies in the northern plains and expands in the Corn Belt. The latest National Drought Monitor reflects the development of abnormally dry conditions across eastern Iowa and throughout much of Illinois. Parts of Indiana and Ohio are also included. But rain received this week, not revealed in this report. Droughty conditions further intensified this week in North Dakota. 27% is now in severe drought, 13 points worse than last week. Expanding drought conditions are forcing North Dakota's ranchers to consider worst-case scenarios to find enough forage to get cattle through the summer and upcoming winter. After touring some of the driest areas of the state, North Dakota Ag Commissioner Doug Gehring is advocating crop insurance and CRP regulations be relaxed to provide some relief to producers who are running short of feed. Cliff Naylor reports.
There's not a lot here.
No. The grass in this pasture should be twice as high as it is now.
Most of our grasslands on the western 2/3 of the state look like this pasture here. They're brown.
North Dakota Agriculture Commissioner Doug Gehring saw firsthand just how dry areas of the state are during a tour of drought-stricken ranches.
Tough thing for the guys that are going to be dry logging right now is trying to find any forage at all. And that might mean going as far as Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana just to get some feed.
Hauling hay isn't an economical solution for rancher Tim Kwame.
Where there is feed, it's so far away that the freight on it gets prohibitive to buy.
Gehring plans on working with USDA to move updates for the haying of CRP land. He also wants to push the federal crop insurance program to declare losses now and release those acres so it can be grazed or replanted with cover crops.
Plant some like Sudan sorghum, some sorghum out here, some millets, something to get some grass, get some feed for this winter.
Kwame says as bad as things are, a little rain now would still go a long way.
We've got corn in that we chop for silage. Well, right now it's 3 inches tall. It's sitting there, so some rain would get that growing, so we'd have some silage to chop, which would help tremendously.
USDA requires an area to be in severe drought for 8 weeks before Conservation Reserve Program land can be released. That timeline would prohibit haying CRP until August 1st, which would be too late for many producers in need of feed now. I'm Cliff Naylor, reporting for AgDay.
Cliff says drought-stricken regions of North Dakota received up to 2 inches of rain Monday, but even with that moisture, many areas of the state annual rainfall is still 3 to 5 inches short. Now, as bad as the drought is becoming in North Dakota, it's still not hitting the D3 or extreme category, which would trigger emergency grazing on CRP acres. Drought in pockets of the west, but rain and hail seen this week throughout farm country. Mike Hoffman has a look in this morning's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Let's start off in south central Nebraska. Randy Ermacher received hail on his fields with some thunderstorms earlier this week. He says the crops are still young, so it shouldn't cause too much in the way of damage. And Ron Hass over in east central Illinois sending us these aerial photos. He says the flood has returned. USDA says 58% of the state's corn crop and 66% of the soybean crop is good to excellent, though. And taking a look at the drought monitor, it's actually spread into parts of Illinois and a few spots in Missouri. It's gotten much better in Florida, but it continues to get worse in North Dakota and northern South Dakota. We'll talk more about that coming up, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Save time each day and receive the latest market prices directly to your cell phone with market updates. It makes it effortless to stay aware of shifting market prices. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Some wheat growers in the northern plains are chopping wheat for feed as the drought lingers. We'll take a closer look at spring wheat markets when we come back. And then we'll head to the fields with Missy Bauer. We look at a soy crop putting too much energy into the plant and not enough into the pod. How do you manage it?
AgDay, brought to you by Top Third Ag Marketing. Farmer first with a plan for every market.
In agribusiness, grain markets closed mostly higher in Chicago. Let's get an update on Thursday's action at the CME.
Looking at the December corn contract, $3.95. That was the top end of the range that we had been stuck in for about 2 months. We fell below that here over the past 24 hours, but have regained that. We need to see consecutive closes above that level to press us higher. We know funds still have a rather good-sized net short position. So if we do close above this and get some favorable weather conditions, and by favorable I mean favorable to the bulls, we could propel us up above that 404 level, which is going to be key on a closing basis. We've seen a lot of pressure come into the cattle complex over the past week to week and a half, with the live cattle contract trading about $10 off of the recent highs of 127, testing that 117 level. This is going to be very pivotal as we close out the week. We're starting to get towards some oversold levels, but that does not mean the selling has evaporated just yet. We could see a little bit of a relief rally going into the weekend, but ultimately, I think the bears have taken full control of this market. It's been Oliver Soap, iTrader, from the floor of the CME.
Pete Meyer with Power Energy, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Pete, let's talk about the wheat situation, because that WASDE report that came out last week, they raised some production in Kansas, of places where we thought maybe we weren't going to have as much production because of those storms. Do you agree with that? Is that in line with what you're thinking?
Yeah, I have no problem with their HRW number. That's actually just within 3 or 4 million bushels of mine. I did raise my HRW number just recently because boots on the ground told me that the Kansas damage wasn't quite as bad. I think too many people killed the Kansas crop, right? The issue really is what's happening to the north. Your spring wheat, your Minneapolis contract, 53% of that is planted in North Dakota and South Dakota, right in the face of this blast furnace. And we rely on the spring wheat in that area to boost up the protein of our lower quality stuff. So what I do worry about is that the spread between Minneapolis and Chicago, which has a track record of ruining more than one career over the years, is just going to, it's going to be a tough one. Anybody out there that plays that spread, God bless them, I don't want to get involved.
Well, as we go forward, producers are out in fields now harvesting this crop. Is there any indication on whether this is a store or a sell off the combine kind of year? What do we know?
Boy, that's tough. And you know, the one comment that I keep getting is that they would have thought in some areas of Kansas they would have been able to take it off already, but it's just not quite ready yet. So I'm actually on my way to Kansas next week, and I'm sorry that we're a week ahead of time, but I want to see what's going on there. I think it surprised a few people that it's just not ready to go yet. Outside of that, it's, you know, HRW, you're kind of caught in the middle. So I don't really have much feel for it at the moment regarding a distinct recommendation.
Right. As far as we look at the global situation, though, I mean, globally, we still have a big crop out there, right, that we're dealing with.
Well, we have a big crop, and we also are coming off a French failure last year where the Russians grabbed the entire market. I mean, you would hope that we'd be able to get a little bit more of that wheat market segment back. The Russians are dominating the market. The French, you know, they're not exactly having a great time for the second year in a row trying to get their spring crops in. So yeah, look, we definitely have this overhang. No question about it.
Quite a bit of dynamic situation out there for wheat. Appreciate it, Pete. We'll be back with more AgDay in just a minute.
Get the roots your crops need by getting Radiate first. Visit lovelandproducts.com/radiate. See your CPS dealer today.
Welcome back to AgDay. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, as we look at this drought monitor, yes, there are some places getting worse, but I still can't believe how much Florida improved.
It's amazing how fast that happened, and it's amazing how little drought we really are seeing across the country. So we're shifting our focus of concern really from the Florida area to a couple of spots in the Midwest, mainly North Dakota, northern South Dakota, and there is some concern in the central Mississippi Valley as well, the areas that haven't had any rain over the past several days, but some of that area did get some rain. This is what it looked like 4 weeks ago. You can see how much drought there was in Florida. You can see how little there was through the Plains states and the northern and central Mississippi Valley, but over the last 4 weeks, we've seen kind of the shift. It's going away in Florida. It's expanding in parts of the Midwest. So we'll be watching that for you. There's our weather map this morning. Cold front into the east. Mainly showers and thunderstorms along that. There's not a lot behind this, but there will be some scattered activity. This is a decent system coming into the west, and it's eventually coming into the Plains states. As we head through the day today, you can see the hit and miss afternoon thunderstorms up and down the East Coast, Gulf Coast area as well, and just a few spots across the Midwest. Not too many areas get a whole bunch of rain today. Taking a look at tonight, you can see how the secondary front moving across the Great Lakes still causing some areas of showers and thunderstorms, but those won't be widespread. And you can see that system coming into the Dakotas. Unfortunately, it looks like that kind of came through the Dakotas with some rain, but not a lot of widespread rain. By the time we get to late in the day tomorrow, that's moving into the western Great Lakes with some showers and storms, and the hit and miss activity continues throughout the southeast. Taking a look at precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours, you can see a lot of it's been up and down the Appalachians, down into the Gulf Coast area, adding in the next 36 hours. That's going to be the focus once again, is the East Coast and the Gulf Coast, especially from Louisiana eastward. And then also you can see the pockets, some of these weak fronts coming across the northern tier of states will cause some areas of showers and storms. High temperatures today, 80s and 90s from the Great Lakes down to the Gulf, a few 100s showing up as well. Cool in the northwest and cool in the northeast. That's been the theme this whole week. Still pretty muggy through the midsections of the country tonight. Highs tomorrow, lots of 80s and 90s, and look at that large area of triple digits showing up from Kansas into the panhandle of Texas. And there's the jet stream. You can see the little bit of a trough digging in over the weekend into the Great Lakes. Another piece of energy dives in, and yet a third piece as we head through next week, but the heat continues in the west. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, Chico, California, partly sunny, hot and rather humid, high of 98 degrees. Lincoln, Nebraska, partly sunny and hot, a strong afternoon thunderstorm, high of 92. And Huntsville, Alabama, hot and humid, a spotty afternoon thunderstorm, high around 91.
Up next, we're talking about soybean growth and maximizing yields on Farm Journal College TV with Missy Bauer, and later using weevils as a weapon against aquatic pests.
We're pitching in to help our neighbors, and you can join us. Go to wildfirerelieffund.org to learn more.
Soybeans are often growing in most instances, and in Farm Journal College TV today, agronomist Missy Bauer joins us to talk about bean growth and the impact it can have on yields.
Missy, when we're talking about soybeans, I think we've all driven by that field that looked like the soybeans were up past the cab of the truck, just really huge. Talk to us about managing the growth of our soybeans and really, what are we looking for? What's ideal?
Yeah, and that's one thing that it's hard to kind of get your arms around, because you see that field that's nice and big and tall and you think it's really going to yield well. But in reality, those are typically the fields that yield lower. And what happens is when our beans get too big and too growthy, the distance between the nodes becomes very spaced out. So you can see on this plant, these nodes, or the spots where we've got pods here, are stacked pretty tight together.
Right.
That's what we're looking after. When they get spaced out, we have a plant from harvest time here. When they really start spaced out in between here, you might have a taller plant, but we have no more total nodes on this plant. We actually end up sometimes with even fewer nodes. Remember, it's the nodes are going to be the spots where we can actually have these pods or have branches that could have pods on them. So big growthy beans get too lengthened out. Then what happens is we get an increased disease pressure. Because the humidity levels in the canopy with big growthy beans are much higher. In this case, white mold took over then. But it could be other diseases as well when we have those high humidity levels in the canopy.
Yeah, is it just humidity, or what does that humidity do for the growth of the plant?
So as humidity levels increase in the plant, so once our rows are closed, temperature stays relatively constant inside this canopy. So if you're looking down in the canopy, what's happening in between there? Temperature's pretty constant after they're closed. But humidity levels will rise. So you got bigger growth of your beans, or you got too high of plant populations, humidity goes up. And as humidity goes up and temperature remains constant, what we've seen is that free water vapor reduces CO2 levels in the canopy. And carbon dioxide is a driving factor in photosynthesis. So in photosynthesis, you want to have good CO2 levels inside the canopy. So if we have reduced CO2 levels in the canopy, we'll typically see yields go down.
All right, thanks, Missy. Now, what about the plants you don't want to grow? It's been an issue in some Louisiana waters, but next, scientists think they may have a new friend in the fight.
Visit farmjournalpro.com. Trusted analysis, professional insight. farmjournalpro.com.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota's full line of field-proven hay tools. Explore the full lineup at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
An invasive aquatic plant continues to cause problems in Louisiana, but researchers are finding success using a weevil as a weapon. LSU Ag Center's Craig Gautreaux has the story.
Giant salvinia, an aquatic plant native to Brazil, continues to plague waterways across Louisiana and other southern states. Researchers with the LSU Ag Center and other government agencies are putting weevils into infested areas to help slow the spread of the plant.
We bring the weevils, the adult and larval stage of the weevils, out into the field where there's natural infestations with little to no weevil activity there. And so it's a natural way to control the giant salvinia infestation.
Using weevils as a biological control has worked in Australia, but the population of weevils must reach a certain level to be effective. Wall's research indicates there should be 30 weevils per kilogram of salvinia to get some form of control.
Once you get above 30 is when you see a definite browning of the ponds, and you see plant quality decreasing, the production of new buds decreasing as well.
Wall estimates the number of weevils in the rearing pond at around 70 weevils per kilogram of salvinia. While other insects do feed on salvinia, the weevil is the only one that will actually kill the plant.
The weevil will cut off the flow of nutrients in the plant, killing it, as opposed to the samia are just eating the green leaves, and that's not enough to cut off the flow of energy and produce new leaves.
Researchers have conducted weevil releases in the past, but their survival has been hampered by cold weather experienced in the northern hemisphere. It also takes time for the weevils to establish themselves in new environments.
Big thing is time. You need to have time and be patient enough for them to increase population to the size of effective control of giant salvinia.
The weevils are being reared in quarter-acre ponds. Each pond is capable of filling nearly 800 totes, which contain a large number of weevils. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. For Mike Hoffman and all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
AgDay is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest lasting pickups.